Hi everyone! In this episode, I'd like to share with you my talking points for the Women's Network of Alumni from the university where I completed my master's degree. The theme of the talk was building up expertise, my expertise, and starting with the caveat that I'm not truly an expert and that I consider myself a constant learner instead because I will never be fully learned. I talk about 4 factors that help me build up my expertise, or more accurately, my experience and knowledge in academia. Scholars Unbound is a bi-monthly podcast or video series that showcases the voices of scholars who know no boundaries when it comes to the pursuit of knowledge. You will hear insights from their experiences as international scholars and how these influence their research, hoping to inspire future scholars to be fearless, global, and unbound. I'm your host, Dalia Simangan. The first factor that helped me is crafting an academic mission statement. This statement has 3 important parts: the research methods I use, the topic I study, and then the purpose for studying such topic. What I learned after entering academia is that while there are many responsibilities, there are also many opportunities for which I am very grateful. But with these opportunities coming my way, I need to prioritize which ones I should take. My academic mission serves as a guide in doing this. For example, when I receive an invitation for a writing project, say contribute an article to a special issue in a journal or a chapter in an edited book, I check if these opportunities are aligned with my academic mission statement. That's why I printed out my academic mission statement and placed it somewhere easily visible in my office so I can always refer to it. This statement, of course, is never set in stone. I review it, I reflect on it as I go through changes in my career, and then I revise it if needed. I just make sure that revising my academic mission statement is based on my own self-reflection and interests rather than it being externally imposed. And I think this is important because it reminds me of my agency amid all these responsibilities. It reminds me that I can be in charge of my career if I choose to. The second factor is to check the key performance indicators in your university. This is something I wasn't aware of when I was a student, but in academia, we are assessed according to certain criteria. In my case, the annual assessment is based on research articles in indexed journals, the number of grants approved, the internationalization or the number of articles co-authored with researchers in non-Japanese universities, and then, of course, research supervision. I'm fully aware that these criteria are not exhaustive and are somehow unfair to other important aspects of my work. For example, books and book chapters do not have much weight in my performance, despite book writing as an important intellectual contribution. Another example is that non-academic engagement, such as writing opinion editorials for newspapers or giving interviews to news agencies, these are given very little attention in these key performance indicators, although we all know they are important social contributions. I still write book chapters and op-eds, and I'm planning to pitch the proposal for my second book sometime next year, I hope. But I also make sure that I fulfill the key components of my assessment because doing so will help me in my promotion later on. The third factor is maintaining a sustainable writing practice. Unlike when I was a PhD student or even when I was a postdoctoral fellow, I was focusing only on one specific project at a time. But now I have to juggle several projects while also doing some administrative work and, of course, teaching. What's ironic is that much of my working time is being spent not on what counts toward my key performance indicators and promotion, which is mostly research articles, as I've said, published in these academic journals. I find myself doing so many other tasks that do not directly contribute to writing research articles. And upon realizing this, I decided that I need to maintain a sustainable writing practice. Sustainable here means something that I can consistently do and develop into a habit. In other words, a writing practice that is realistic given my other duties in the university. Writing during big blocks of time, one whole day for example, or meeting thousands of word count in one sitting, that's not a sustainable practice for me because my other tasks make it impossible to have these whole days just for writing. So instead of finding time to write, I schedule ahead or I allot time for writing, as Paul de Silvia advised in his book, How to Write a Lot. This means I keep a consistent writing schedule. During the teaching semesters, I have 4 hours each on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday reserved for writing. And I make sure that I do not miss my appointment with my writing. I show up during my writing time in the same way that I show up during our faculty meetings or during my classes. And there are no excuses, unless, of course, I get sick or during family emergencies. I think about it this way. I cannot just miss my class just because I woke up late or I do not feel really inspired. I treat my writing appointments in the same way because showing up for my writing is what really matters for my career. And no one else in my university will do it for me. And it does wonders because these small chunks of time, these small steps, could ultimately lead to a full-on, well-developed research article in a few months. So, creating a sustainable writing practice is crucial for any academic or researcher. Finally, to build up my academic expertise, I engage in meaningful conversations with researchers in my field or even researchers in other fields for interdisciplinary research projects. This goes back to what I was saying earlier about building expertise as a constant learning process. What does this conversation entail? It could be as simple as connecting with other researchers through social media, and even though some may push back against this because of the disadvantages of social media, I would say that it really depends on us on how we take advantage of virtual connectivity. I found a postdoctoral position that I got in 2017 because of Twitter. Conversations also mean attending academic conferences. And now the COVID-19 situation somehow created innovations for us to engage virtually, making it easier and more cost-effective to connect with others. We sometimes call this networking, and I used to dread this word networking. And to some extent, until now, I still consider myself very bad at networking. But it was because of networking by presenting my research at an academic conference where I was able to get feedback on how to improve my paper, and that paper became my first ever publication. Conversations also mean initiating your own activities that you think will benefit your learning process as well as your academic community. For example, at the height of the pandemic in 2020, I launched the Scholars Unbound podcast for students and scholars from the Global South or from ethnic minority groups or female scholars who are usually experiencing the double burden in academia when it comes to institutional and interpersonal challenges. There are unique challenges that Global South scholars face in academic institutions anywhere in the world. So through this initiative, I aim to create an ongoing conversation for our community to share the challenges we experience and how we can overcome them, and also to share opportunities and some tips and advice with others. And one last thing I want to say is that it's somehow related to building expertise, which is on finding academic opportunities. I found the position at my current university through a portal. So websites for job postings are very, very useful. And also don't forget to ask around. Post on social media that you are looking for an academic or research position. Reach out to professors you know who may lead you to an opportunity. The answer, of course, will not always be yes, but it doesn't hurt to ask around. 2 months ago, I was invited to apply for an academic position overseas through a recommendation by a professor whom I'm guessing I engage on social media. Last week, a researcher I met through a networking activity emailed me about a call for applications and suggested that I share the call with my network. This just shows that in building our expertise, it's also important to nurture our professional relationships. The academic job market is not very encouraging these days for most disciplines. I would be lying to say that it's easy to get an academic job. More and more smart and motivated scholars are applying for a decreasing number of available positions. But even though our courage and labor may not immediately bear fruit today, for someone who has struggled through uncertainty and imposter syndrome, I can confidently say that they ultimately will. Until then, let's continue building our expertise, advancing our knowledge and skills together as a community. Thank you for listening to this episode. Please consider leaving a comment or rating at iTunes or any of your preferred podcast hosting platforms. For details about upcoming episodes and how to support the Scholars Unbound project, visit daliasimangan.com/scholars unbound with the link in our show notes.